Welcome to Cheating Facts, real accounts of deception and justice. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I'm here to share true stories of betrayal and the strength it takes to fight back when the people you trust most turn against you. My name is Victoria, and I'm going to tell you about the day I discovered that my husband's affair was just the beginning of a much bigger conspiracy that reached into the very heart of the company where we both worked. 2 years ago, my life looked perfect from the outside. I was a senior marketing manager at Pinnacle Financial Services, married to Nathan, who worked as a regional sales director in the same company. We'd met at the office 5 years earlier, and everyone always said we were the golden couple, successful, attractive, seemingly devoted to each other. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning in March. I'd arrived at work early to prepare for a client presentation when I noticed Nathan's car already in the parking lot. That was unusual. He typically arrived at least an hour after me. But what really caught my attention was seeing Cassandra Wells, our HR manager, walking out of the building at 7:30 a.m., smoothing down her skirt and checking her reflection in her phone screen. Cassandra was known for her strict professionalism. She was the type who sent emails about proper dress codes and appropriate workplace relationships. Seeing her at the office that early, looking disheveled, sent a chill down my spine. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Nathan would get mysterious phone calls that he'd take in another room. He'd suddenly developed an interest in staying late at the office for important projects. His phone, which used to sit casually on our kitchen counter, was now permanently attached to his hand, face down and password protected. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. During the company's quarterly meeting, I watched Nathan and Cassandra's interactions carefully. The way she leaned in when speaking to him, how their hands briefly touched when passing documents, the meaningful glances across the conference room. It all painted a picture I desperately didn't want to see. That evening, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to gather evidence. I started documenting everything. Nathan's schedule changes, unexplained absences, the new cologne he'd started wearing. I took photos of credit card statements, showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels booked on days he claimed to be in client meetings. The most damning evidence came from an unlikely source. Our company used keycard access for security, and as a senior manager, I had access to building entry logs for my department. What I discovered made my blood run cold. On multiple occasions when Nathan claimed to be in client dinners or out-of-town meetings, his keycard showed he was in the building, specifically accessing the HR department after hours. I printed every single log, cross-referenced them with his claimed whereabouts, and built an irrefutable timeline of deception. But I needed more than just access logs. I needed proof of what was actually happening during those late-night office visits. The opportunity came during our company's annual audit preparation. As department heads, both Nathan and I were required to work late to compile financial reports. I volunteered to stay even later, claiming I wanted to perfect my presentation. What I really wanted was access to the security office. Our night security guard, Robert, had always been friendly with me. I brought him coffee and mentioned I was concerned about some suspicious after-hours activity in the building. I didn't specify what kind of activity, but I suggested we might want to review recent security footage to ensure our protocols were being followed. Robert was more than happy to help, especially when I mentioned this was about protecting company assets and maintaining professional standards. We spent 2 hours going through footage from the past month, and what we found exceeded my worst fears. There, in crystal clear digital video, was my husband of 4 years unlocking the HR department with Cassandra's keycard at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. 43 minutes later, they emerged together, Cassandra adjusting her blouse, Nathan straightening his tie. This scene repeated itself 7 times across 3 weeks of footage. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. As Robert continued scrolling through the footage, we found something that made both of us gasp. Cassandra wasn't just having an affair with Nathan, she was also involved with Marcus Chun, our head of IT, and possibly Derek Morrison from accounting. I asked Robert to burn the footage to a secure drive, explaining that this was now a serious HR violation that would need to be reported to corporate headquarters. He agreed, but what he said next chilled me to the bone. Mrs. Morrison, I should mention, Ms. Wells approached me last week asking for copies of security footage. She said it was for a confidential HR investigation. Cassandra knew someone was watching. She was already trying to cover her tracks. The next morning, I walked into work with a plan. I was going to confront Nathan privately first, give him a chance to come clean, and then we'd figure out how to handle the professional ramifications together. I still loved him, despite everything, and I hoped we could work through this. I never got the chance. At 10:15 a.m., my desk phone rang. It was Cassandra asking me to come to her office immediately for a confidential discussion regarding my employment status. The moment I walked into her office, I knew she was aware that I knew. Her usually pristine desk was scattered with papers. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she couldn't make eye contact. "Victoria," she began, her voice artificially calm. "I've become aware that you've been accessing building security systems inappropriately. This is a serious violation of company policy and could result in immediate termination." I remained silent, letting her continue. "However," she continued, leaning back in her chair with newfound confidence, "I'm willing to overlook this security breach if we can come to an understanding. You see, there are certain professional relationships within this company that could be damaging if they became public knowledge. Relationships that involve people very close to you." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "What kind of understanding are you suggesting, Cassandra?" She smiled then, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen. "I'm suggesting that you submit a resignation letter, effective in 2 weeks, citing personal reasons for leaving. In exchange, I'll ensure that certain information about your husband's professional conduct remains confidential. This protects everyone involved. Nathan keeps his job, you leave with a clean record, and the company avoids any messy scandals." The audacity was breathtaking. She was blackmailing me to cover up her own affairs and protect Nathan's career while forcing me out of a job I'd worked 5 years to build. But Cassandra had made one crucial mistake. She assumed I was just a heartbroken wife who would quietly disappear to avoid embarrassment. She had no idea what I'd already discovered, or that I'd been recording our entire conversation on my phone. "That's an interesting proposal," I said calmly, "but I have a counteroffer." I placed my phone on her desk, showing the recording in progress, and then pulled out a manila folder containing printed screenshots of every piece of evidence I'd gathered. "Here's what's actually going to happen," I continued. "You're going to submit your resignation immediately, citing personal reasons. Nathan can keep his job for now, but he and I will be having a very different conversation about our marriage, and you're going to recommend me for your position as interim HR manager while the company searches for your replacement." Cassandra's face went white as she flipped through the security footage screenshots, keycard access logs, and building entry records. When she reached the photos clearly showing her with not just Nathan, but Marcus and Derek as well, her hands started trembling. "You can't prove anything with these," she stammered, but her voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and played back her own words. "There are certain professional relationships within this company that could be damaging if they became public knowledge." Actually, Cassandra, you just confessed to knowledge of inappropriate workplace relationships and attempted to blackmail an employee to cover them up. That's grounds for immediate termination and potential criminal charges. The power dynamic had completely shifted. She went from confident manipulator to desperate damage control in the span of 5 minutes. "What do you want?" she whispered. "Justice," I replied, "and accountability." Within 2 hours, Cassandra had submitted her resignation. I walked straight to Nathan's office and placed the evidence folder on his desk without saying a word. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. "Victoria, I can explain," he started, but I held up my hand. "You have 2 choices," I said. "We can handle this privately and figure out if our marriage is salvageable, or I can forward all of this evidence to corporate HR and let them handle your employment status. Your choice." Nathan chose the private conversation. It took 6 months of counseling, complete transparency, and him changing departments within the company, but we managed to rebuild our marriage stronger than before. As for Cassandra, word spread quickly through the company about her sudden resignation for personal reasons. Marcus and Derek both received official warnings for inappropriate workplace conduct, though they kept their jobs after completing mandatory professional behavior training. I did apply for the interim HR position, and I got it. Turns out, having intimate, Knowledge of how workplace policies can be violated made me exceptionally good at preventing future violations. The most satisfying moment came 3 months later when I ran into Cassandra at a coffee shop near our office. She looked tired, defeated, and according to the mutual acquaintance I was with, she was working as a temp while trying to rebuild her professional reputation. She approached our table hesitantly and said, "Victoria, I want you to know I'm sorry. What I did was wrong, and I understand why you had to take action." I looked at her for a long moment before responding. "Cassandra, what you did to Nathan was between you two. What you tried to do to me crossed a line that required consequences. I hope you've learned from this experience." She nodded and walked away. I never saw her again. The whole experience taught me that betrayal often comes in layers. It's not just about the affair or the lies. It's about the abuse of power, the manipulation, and the assumption that victims will stay silent to avoid confrontation. But here's what I learned about fighting back. Document everything. Stay strategic rather than emotional. And never underestimate the power of evidence when confronting people who think they hold all the cards. Sometimes the person trying to destroy you hands you exactly the tools you need to protect yourself. You just have to be brave enough to use them. If you're facing workplace harassment, relationship betrayal, or someone abusing their power to hurt you, remember that the truth is your greatest weapon. Gather your evidence, stay focused on facts, and don't let anyone convince you to accept treatment that you know is wrong. Thanks for watching Cheating Facts. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and share your own experiences in the comments. Remember, you're stronger than you know, and justice is always worth fighting for.